Hey, it is Thursday, February 7th, and this is a meeting to talk about community outreach for Backdrop CMS. Um, According to the agenda, we are supposed to talk about our website first. Oh, module themes and layouts. Okay, so last week I worked on this all afternoon and I got a core patch up that fixed search, and then I committed all of my changes to the backdropcms.org repo, and then it was like 12:30 at night, and I was like, don't deploy this now, whatever you do, because it's going to be really bad if everything's broken and then you go to bed. So it's all ready to go. And I thought what I would do is push it today, and then maybe while everybody's awake, I can get some help testing it. And then if there's anything terribly wrong, we could roll it back. But what it does is it redoes the modules, themes, and layouts search pages on backdropcms.org so that, number one, it renders more nicely. It uses a new custom view mode to display all of the information we want to show on each project. And that will be really easy when we get slideshows and stuff to just add it as another field display to that view mode. And then it also changes the way the search works so that it now weights the title search result much higher than anything that appears in the body. So like if you have a module named web form and it says web form once in the title but doesn't say it at all in the body, but then you have other modules that are like web form add-ons and they say the word web form 5 times in the body, if you search for web form should still come up first. And the way that I made the patch for core, there's a user interface that lets you select like how much heavier you want the title to be than the rest of the search matching, but that did require an API change. I had to add parameters to hook rankings, which I think will be okay. I ran it by Nate verbally, but I wanted to actually look at the pull request before we're sure. But Doc Wilmot reviewed it, and he was like, it should do this anyway. Even if we can't provide a user interface for it, we should just squish this in and make it weight more heavily. We'll just decide on some arbitrary value if we can't provide the user interface, because that's an API change. So I think that's exciting, and I'd love to get that working on Backdrop. And it was funny, as I was working on it, I was trying to find Drupal modules that implemented this hook, and there were none. I was like, does nobody use the core search in Drupal? Is it that bad that everybody's just given up? And everybody I talked to was like, oh yeah, we don't use it anymore. I was just like, this is crazy.
So when you asked me to review that ticket, I didn't really correlate it with the problem that we're having with b.org. But now that you mention it, and the example that you said was to test with web form, it makes sense. But you having me revisit the whole search thing realized me how much it terribly sucks in both B7 and like I now realize why everybody is using Search API and Solr.
Yeah, and it's super wonky. Like you actually have to write logic in MySQL for how you want the join to happen, and then that's one of the parameters of hook rankings. So I think the search system is totally ripe for a revisit, and we should definitely look at some of the solutions that exist in Contrib for Drupal. The thing I don't like about Search API is that it assumes that you're going to have an external search system. And there is an option where it uses the MySQL database as its external thing. But I would love to just make the built-in search better. Like whatever we ship with core shouldn't, depend on you having something else. So I don't know if we can do that within our existing search module, or if we need to replace it with something else. But I do think that we shouldn't depend on someone having something like Apache Solr or who's, whatever.
Yeah, I was thinking that. So Solr or they don't fit the main audience or our our main audience. But at the same time, it's good news that it's not working as it should in D8 and in Backdrop inherently, because I think that we won't break many things. In fact, we'll improve them if we introduce something even in the 1.x.
Yeah.
Like, we could claim that it's not claim just, but bug fixes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It works better.
And I think also like the API addition we're making, we're passing the search terms that people are searching into the function that people can do something with, which is kind of stupid that they weren't there in the first place, because that made hook ranking sort of useless if you can't do anything with the search terms that are coming in. So I'm thinking that like this is a step in the right direction, that like now Contrib can do something useful with search where they actually couldn't before because the API was so limited. But I think the way we're doing the MySQL stuff is just bizarre. And we should figure out a way to make that more developer friendly. And if we can leave the signature of the search function the same, where we're like, you know, pass in nothing and it'll do whatever it does now, we just maybe add a new API hook or something. There's a lot of ways I think we could do this in a backwards compatible way. Considering that it does so little now, we're very likely to not break it and only make it better. So yeah, I have.
You know, I think we can be more ambitious than that for this. Like I you know, just sort of think off the cuff. You know, we're in the outreach meeting here, right? We're looking for things that get the world excited about Backdrop. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but this feels like it's kind of low hanging fruit. Like Drupal has Drupal, you know, our world, our code base has the capability to produce like very sophisticated, modern, user-friendly searches. Yet anything that you can do short of like rocket science shit like Solr just completely sucks.
Yeah.
So
I think what we need to do, like the real answer here is going to be exposing the search index to views, because what people are going to want their search to do on their site is going to be, you know, the standard is like search the body field, but like we want more than that. And I think that if we can let people build their own search with views where they can build their own facets and filters the way that they normally do, that's going to be the big win. And right now, the way that search integrates with views is super limited. It's just like, oh, if you happen to add a search field, then it'll join to the search table, but there isn't really any way to like customize what that is. And the fact that the way we define our like search snippets is really bizarre with a special view mode, and the search results string it's all just wonky. And I think you're totally right that this is low-hanging fruit. It's something that is a problem everywhere. And I think that if we can get the search part of things working better and then integrate that with the views interface so people can customize that search result page, I think that's going to be our real win.
Oh yeah. I mean, just things that are like easy for Drupalistas to do in terms of like hierarchical taxonomies and things like that. If the way that's displayed to the user is you know, you just type in your hierarchical taxonomy into this field and suddenly your faceted search is, you know, carving through your content. That, you know, every little nonprofit and small to medium business is going to be totally on top of that. Like I know all sorts of things, all sorts of installations that have installed Solr just to get faceted search.
Yeah.
Right. And like they don't need any of the performance, and they sure as hell don't need, you know, the upkeep of like running a separate Java stack.
Yeah.
in order just to get facets, right?
Yep.
So, you know.
Gregory, do you happen to know if we have a like search meta issue?
I don't remember, but if we had, maybe it was a really old one, but I can look into that.
Okay, because I think this would be great. Like, I would love to get all of these ideas jotted down somewhere and have a meta that's like, here are the things we know we need, like easier facets, integration with views, smarter default search handle, like all this stuff, an API that people can actually use.
First thing would be fixed search.
Yeah. Fix search. That's all the issue needs to be. But you're totally right. This is the kind of thing where if we rolled out like with, you know, 1.4 has entirely new search whatevers, that would be a huge win.
So is it something that actually updates your search index without you having to write a cron tab entry? Or you know, like,
so we sort of have that already because Backdrop runs its own cron now every hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, it turns out we have an issue, as Tim pointed it out, and guess who filed it?
You.
Exactly.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, yeah, so that would be great to work on. But I think in terms of outreach, fixing the modules, themes, and layouts search is high priority, and I want to deploy that and get eyes on it. I think it's already going to help that searching will do the right thing. And then next, up for that is right now the search results takes the entire page, and what I thought about doing was shifting it so that it only takes like 3/4 of the page, and then in the sidebar I wanted to put results for things that aren't modules, themes, or layouts. Like we have a content type that's called a placeholder, which is a description for why that module is not necessary in Backdrop. So like if somebody searches for token, right now it will come up with nothing, and they'd be like, well, I can't use Backdrop until there's a token module. But you're like, no, 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 that's in core, right? So I created a placeholder thing that was like token module. This isn't necessary for Backdrop anymore because this functionality is included with core. And so just having that come up in the sidebar would be like, no results found. However, so I just had an idea where I was like, maybe it should not be no results found. But anyway, we'll figure out a way to get that information to people so when they're using.
We have the info messages now.
What?
We have the info messages now.
Yeah. I'm not sure I see how that could be useful. You mean in?
See how web form module at some point included an info message to promote contributions to d.org, I think, or the Drupal Association. If we need to convey something to users, we have info messages now.
But I don't think that's relevant for search results.
Wherever search is being used in the admin, like in the back end, like for site builders saying, hey, you can do this now. You can improve things this way, or
like if somebody searches in the admin bar for token, or
no, if a site administrator starts configuring their sets to do things that previously were not available in Drupal.
Oh, like when we roll out the search module changes. Okay, I could see how that could be relevant there. Okay, I've lost the agenda.
Gregory really wants to find a use for info messages.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of uses for info messages. I think he's just seeing them everywhere.
We have info messages now. You can use them. That would be an info message.
There we go. All right, so next on the agenda, module themes and layouts, we've got a bunch of plans for that. Okay, next on the agenda, homepage demo link. So last week, I think we talked about this in the design meeting too, but we have a page on backdropcms.org where you can go, and it's just got a button that says like fire up your new demo site, and you click it and you get one. And so the next step is to, I have found an issue that was like changing some language on that page or like positioning the text differently or something, like super minor cleanup. We need to get those done. And I think that's hard coded in the module, so it's not an edit the node sort of thing. And then we need to hook up the button on the homepage, or it says try a demo, to the actual page that tries the demo. And then we need to build the other page. I think we already have it, but we need to check on the other page and make sure it's okay. That says other ways to install Backdrop, and that would have the Pantheon and the DDEV and the Lando and any other way you guys can think of how to do it. Shared hosting options or what have you. And then that would be done. Okay.
Another way that we could take advantage of that I thought of. See how we mentioned that we should have a pre-release before the release to avoid the problems that we had this time?
Yes.
If we had a secondary button that says try different branches in the latest branch instead of the stable, like a secondary button, we could urge people just to test things there. Just a thought.
Well, I don't want to put that on the homepage because the homepage is like for selling Backdrop, and we don't want to sell people something that might be buggy. We want to sell them the version that's stable. And I think the Testa early version is really for people who are already sold on Backdrop. So we've got kind of a conflict of target audience here.
Yeah,
but I think
maybe we have a developers section, I think, or is that just the documentation? Let me check real quick.
Where?
In b.org, we have a section for developers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But I think that might be documentation only.
It's in the handbook somewhere. It's in a book. But yeah, we definitely could put like a sidebar block in that section that's like try the latest step of Backdrop. And that way, if developers are there reading stuff, they'll see that and they'll be like, oh yeah. So that's a good idea. Can someone create an issue in the backdropcms.org queue to add a sidebar block to the developer section of whatever book those pages are in so that we can promote the pre-release? And then we should add add a bullet to the minor release checklist to update the pre-release link. Because what that'll probably do is go to the dash preview. I think that's what Nate called it last time version. And then we just need to make sure that that's, you know, when we do a major release, we remove that. And then when we have a, like in that window between code freeze and release, we have the link there. So somewhere in procedures, we just need to document that. Okay, try. All right, so the next item on the agenda is regular blog posts. I think our last blog post is the one on the latest version of Backdrop, which is good. I would, ooh, Gregory, you're working on a new blog post. I got excited, sorry. Yes.
It was a small thing. It was today because Olaf mentioned, when I said, hey, people consider adding your profiles to the Backdrop CMS d.org profile, Olaf says, I can't find how to do that. And I go, oh, good.
Perfect, yeah. So I would love the blog post about the pre-release to be up when we send the newsletter. And the newsletter isn't going until we fix these issues that we've got currently. And then once we get those issues fixed, we'll roll out a new release, roll out the newsletter, and we'll push the whole thing to Pantheon, which I'm hoping will be this week. We'll ask Nate about it in the next meeting and maybe set a date. And then after that, we should publish this blog post, Gregory, yours on the Backdrop on Drupal thing, and get everybody who's working on Backdrop 2 in any way to put their name on there, which would be great. And then do we have any ideas for another blog post?
I think that what this also does is it allows you, when you make a comment in d.org, or if you post a patch for something that we fixed for d.org, you can also attribute credits to Backdrop CMS. So that would help as well.
Yeah, Nate's been doing that. I know anytime he works on something that works on both, he attributes Backdrop. I tend to be a little torn because most of the time I'm working on stuff, it's like, oh, I'm doing this for a client. And so I kind of want the client to get the credit. And so then I'm like, well, I'm just gonna change like the parent organization to Backdrop and then the child organization to the client. But yeah, so it's or maybe the other way around. I don't know. I could try and get it in there. But yeah, anyone who's working on anything Backdrop related on Drupal, definitely feel free to add that wherever you feel. Other ideas for blog posts. Is there anything really cool that you guys are working on right now you want to share with the world? Tim's doing something cool. He just doesn't want to share it with the world.
Yeah, he smiles. He has that smirk.
It's a secret, yeah.
Okay.
Well, we've got a bunch of events coming up we could promote. It's the beginning of Drupal camp season. I'm not sure we've done a event recap for the stuff from last year. Let's see, we have ideas here. Maintaining modules for Backdrop, security, integrations. Oh, we should get community spotlights going. Okay, I will send an email. I keep meaning to do this. I'm going to make a note for myself to our content team about the upcoming newsletter, now that Tim has a blog post for them to work from, and about community spotlights, because I would love to get those going again. If they could do some interviews and write up some posts, that would be great. Spotlight.
Last time I was asked to provide a photo or whatever, and the spotlight would be of me, but that was like a year or a year and a half ago, and I haven't done that. I think there's even an issue for it.
Yeah, I would say that should not be a blocker. If you don't have a photo of you, like in the Australian outback or wherever it was that they wanted a picture of you, I think even your like user profile sketch would be totally fine to get the blog post up. And if you do have a better one, like, you know, Jeff Rock Band was pretty cool, that's great. But I don't think it should prevent the publishing of the blog post. So we'll find some way to do that. I know pictures are hard. Somebody asked me the other day for like I sent a picture from 2015, and they're like, "Don't you have a more recent one?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Can't you take one right now?" And I'm like, "No." It's just like, okay, I'll use this one for 2015. I'm like, thanks.
It's the same situation wherever there's things happening. I always have photos of me taken photos of others taken by me, like my family, my friends, but not myself.
Because you're the one with the camera.
Yeah, or I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm not a selfie person, so.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to put Community Spotlight in here so that I remember to talk about it next time. Hopefully we'll have one up by then. Okay. Backdrop Planet. This is ready. We just need to set up what we're going to use, aggregator module on Backdrop. I'm using that on a client site right now, so I know that it works for Backdrop, which is good. And then we just need to have some process for getting people's individual blogs added to the Planet. So I know Nate and I have done some blogging about Backdrop in the past, so I can throw those 2 links in there as a starting point, but it will be good to get more than that for when we launch. So if anyone else has any blog posts they've been writing on Backdrop on their own blogs, we should get those hooked up. And then should we have an issue queue for the Planet specifically, or should we have people use backdropcms.org? Like if they want to get their sites added to the Planet, on Drupal.org, there's a special queue where you create an issue and then somebody there goes, oh, you need a taxonomy term specifically for Drupal posts. And then once you create it, then they grant you access. So it'd be good to have a place to have that conversation.
We could use the forum.
The forum?
Yeah.
That might be public. I'm not sure people want their conversations.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, maybe. I suppose the issue queue is public too. It's just a different kind of public.
Right. Yeah.
Or ask them to chime in on Gitter if they have an account. And then we can, like, if they feel that the conversation should be private, they can PM people. Or people can PM them.
So what's the conceptual difference between Planet and the mentioned section of backdrop.org?
Planet, we don't have to maintain. Planet, anytime anybody makes their own post, the website will automatically scrape it and put it up. Where right now the mention section is something we just created because we didn't have an automatic tool.
Okay, so it's the same kind of audience, same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Same kind of problem we're trying to solve, but back when we started the mentions, we didn't have anything. So that's what we did.
Would it be
and also with the Planet, people have to opt in. So it would be like one organization that's writing a lot of posts on Backdrop would want to be part of Planet. Whereas with mentions, we can find them and put them there, whether they want it, whether they've asked to be there or not.
Well, I'm just curious what the overlap is, because they both seem to be easier and harder in different ways. So the problem with mentions, as you say, is that the administrative team has to take energy to do it. But with the automatic aggregator, the contributors have to be pretty heavily involved in this. You know, they have to.
Well, they have to be involved once, right? Like at the very beginning, they're going to say, "I'm going to write a lot of posts on Backdrop," and as soon as they get signed up once, then every future post is automatic. Yeah. Whereas with mentions, every single time someone has to be involved.
Would Planet be a subset, a superset of mentions? Like, would it include? Would the Planet include mentions or replace it?
So it depends. If any of the mentions that we have on our site now are like from my blog, and then I were to opt in to Planet, then I would probably go and delete the mention that pointed to my blog because it would also be in Planet. But I have a feeling that a lot of the stuff that's in mentions now aren't people who are going to be opting in. They're just someone who wrote one article, or it's something like Tag One or something like a news source. And so those wouldn't necessarily be opted into the Planet for long-term future publications.
Yeah, if you look at the total, I think it's 3 or 4 pages of the mentions, you will see that there's very few people that repeatedly added articles. They're all like unique sources, and I usually grab them from the internet, like every once a month or second month. I just Google Backdrop CMS and see if new results come up.
All right. Well, I mean, that strikes me as very valuable and kind of buried in our current thing. If there's a way to get that to surface a little bit better for people that are at the like what's backdrop phase, right? Like to try to when people are searching for things like that.
Yeah, or it could be a person that just attended a DrupalCon or a Drupal event, and then a backdrop session was there, and they want to talk about it, but then they forget about it. So it's not people that necessarily get hooked. It might be a first impression.
No, I know. I'm singing the praises of your work with mentions. Actually,
okay.
I have a Flipboard magazine that I created like a long time ago for backdrop things to put stuff in, which I didn't find much on my own, but I dumped all the mentions into there. Like I just went through one night and over an hour, like copied each link, and let me put the link in here so you can see it, because it actually there's good stuff in there. It's kind of compelling when presented.
Yeah. So
as a collection of things.
So the mentions started off as, I think, the first days of Backdrop when it was announced, as in sort of like what people are saying about us. Then it evolved to become a, are people actually mentioning? Is there something happening? Are people looking into Backdrop? And then it just became a historic sort of like thing just that people can reference. What Zen is talking about, like the difference with Planet Drupal and the RSS feed that I'm subscribed to as well, is that there's certain companies that for maybe their own reasons, like to attract people, it could be their marketing team, they just have a regular, like one of their marketing team posts something about Drupal, but then it usually ends in if you want to approach us for our services, like the last paragraph would be something like that. Whereas most of the posts that I have gathered from the net till now are like mostly here's my experience with Backdrop. Either they have personally tried it or they have attended an event. So I think that there might be a seeming overlap, but it's not actually. So it's like, not that the links from the mentions cannot be added to the.
I think we should have one like view that includes both the mentions and the aggregator items, and then that way they'll be, interspersed in and still sorted by date, and that way people will find both of them. Yeah. We can still call them mentions, but then we'll just put something on the page like plan it, and then I think you're right, Luke, we can find some way to get that information more prominent. Like right now, it's in the news section, but it's only in the news section of the site. We might want to put that into the sidebar, like on some of the other pages too.
Having something like the Drupal Planet, the Backdrop, the equivalent Backdrop Planet, would simply take some load off of the people that actually regularly contribute, as in write articles about Backdrop. In the fact that we only have them once, sort of like opt-in, as you said, for that, and then it's time that they write something and they tag it as Backdrop, it gets automatically added. So it automates, sort of like it crowdsources something.
Sure.
So yeah, we should have both.
Sounds good. All right. So I will, because I'm doing work on the site today, I will add aggregator module, and we can test it and play with it a little bit, but it'll probably need some theming and integration. So we'll see where that goes. Okay, next newsletter is going to be about the release. I'll email the marketing team about that. Videos, anyone working on videos for Backdrop, I keep saying I'm going to do them, but then somehow it ends up being hard or complicated, or the thing that I thought was going to be 5 minutes takes me 5 hours. Nobody wants to see that. Fixing core search, a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
Don't assume that nobody wants to see that. I looked in my little YouTube channel. I looked at the stats for like anything I've ever posted in my life, And by far the #1 hit is your talk on Twig at EBDUG.
Huh.
Has more views than everything else I posted combined. So, there's that.
Well, that's exciting. Yeah, I just think me going like, what is going on with search module is just not. We'll fix it, and then we'll do a video about like, look how cool it is now. Let's do that instead. That sounds much better.
All right.
Okay. Backdrop tweets. What's going on right now in the world of Backdrop that we need to share about? We have some upcoming events. I think I just mentioned the next. Let's see. There's Drupal Camp Florida. I'm not sure who's going to that one, but it's a big one and it's coming up. And then there's Drupal Camp Midwest to Drupal Camp, which is we're going to have a Backdrop training. And I just submitted a bunch of talks to Drupal Camp Asheville, which is like in the middle of the summer. I'm not sure they're going to accept them, but I figured I'd put them out there anyway because we haven't been there yet. Is there anything else anyone's planning on doing this summer that we should add to the calendar or tweet about or promote?
Do we know if Stanford's going to have a Drupal camp in the spring?
Sometimes they only come out with the website like a couple weeks ahead of time. It's usually in April, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But yeah, if they send an email, I'll go because it's close.
Right.
But yeah, sometimes I don't find about it until I'm like, oh, it's next week. Okay, good. That's fine. I'll cancel my plans.
I will probably submit something to Minnesota Minibar, which is just Minibar. It's a huge bar camp type event where anybody can submit anything. It's at the Best Buy headquarters in Minneapolis, and they have like 1,000 people show up.
Oh, nice.
And anybody can submit anything, and then people can vote on it, and you just get, they basically have 100 sessions in a day, and you get room assignments based on how many people vote for your thing, but it's like, there's no selection process. So
yeah, it all happens like on site at the event.
Well, no, it all happens pre the event.
Okay.
So the earlier you submit your session, the better, the more votes you'll get. But so I'll try and get something on their agenda. That's in late April, and it's just a one-day event, and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Twin Cities Drupal Camp has not got firm dates yet, so.
Okay.
It's really early for that, but also the next Drupal South was announced. It's going to be in Tasmania. This year, I'm going to apply for a session. It's been 3 years since I last talked in Drupal South about Backdrop.
Lots changed. Okay. Well, if you guys get stuff up, go ahead and put it. If you have links to anything, go ahead and put it on the events page on backdroptms.org. And if you want to tweet about it, let Tim or I know. We can tweet. And yeah, anything else that is happening and relevant, we will try and tweet. I guess that's it. Anything else we should talk about outreach?
Can't think of something right now.
Anything about outreach?
Yeah. We're open.
Okay. I've fallen down on the online user group. I'd like to get something on the schedule again. I think our next topic was going to be layouts. I think we were just going to go with the same time on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
I think next week would probably be too soon, but I could
2 weeks.
Try and post something today for 2 weeks.
Okay.
A week from next Tuesday. Does that
That
sound good?
I also have to schedule, one or more user group meetings. So there's that. I actually have to drop now, so I'll see you all later. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
I want to raise one other thing, and that's just a question about sort of metrics. What can we be looking at to judge if we're having any impact on outreach, like downloads, like, I don't know.
Yeah,
have you thought much about that, and what do you look at when you're trying to see?
What do I look at? So number of people that show up in the contrib queue, I think, is a good indicator where they're either like asking for modules or reporting that they're working on modules. Is definitely a sign of like actual adoption. So that's good.
Is there any way to quantify that, like to say, any stats that show how many different people have posted in the last month?
I just eyeball it every week, and I'm like,
Right.
Is that a new name? Yes, no. So I don't know that I have any like actual metric in my mind. It's just like, oh, good, new people are coming. That's great. And that's kind of all. Is like, is it one more than it was last week, or two more, or whatever? That's good. But yeah, getting some kind of actual understanding of like what that growth rate looks like would be really good too, because I have a feeling like when we send the newsletters and do all of the like tweets with all the new features, there's kind of like right after a release, there's an uptick, and then, you know, it gets quiet in the middle, and then before a release, there's like a little uptick because there's a lot of activity, and then it kind of gets quiet in the middle of the next one too. So it would be a good idea to see that, and then we would know for sure, like, okay, well, between when we're not doing anything with the code, we need to do more stuff with the outreach would be good. And then I also look at like number of backdrop sites that are currently reporting, and that number keeps going up, which is good. And then I think we should also, like, I haven't looked at the Google Analytics for a while, but I think just getting an idea of like traffic on the site would be good. And if we can put in a specific action for like clicking on the try a demo button, that might also be really valuable.
I was about to say that an indicator would be the amount of demo sites that will get spinned up.
Yeah. And we can ask Pantheon for how many demo sites they have, like, that people have set up. But I think that that might not be as good an indicator as when we get the new site up, because it does require having a Pantheon account or setting one up, which is a bit of a blocker for people who don't already have one. Yeah, maybe we should prioritize demo button and Google Analytics, like a specific event for clicking on that button. We can also get traffic to that page, like the follow-up page would be good. So yeah, that I think will be better going forward. And Wes made us a dashboard at some point that reported all of our Google Analytics stuff in a way that was super useful. I'm not sure where we're going to find it again. Okay. I think we just have to ask him. Right. I don't know, maybe it's somewhere in my email or something. I don't know. I'll try and find it and see. But that would be good too, just to take a peek at that and see what it's been doing for the last 2 years or whatever since he set it up. It'll have like charts and graphs and stuff on it. So that could be fun rather than just a bunch of numbers.
And I think that the thing that comes to mind now, before I forget it, because we keep mentioning it, but I don't recall having it on the agenda so that we can find ways about going about it, is how we could allow users to find people near them involved with Backdrop, like same country, same area. So I'm not sure what we've done. I recall that somewhere in Drupal there was like a map, and it was, maybe I'm thinking about a different thing, because I think it was if people were posting issues or something, that it had an effect of bubbling things in the world map of who's doing something around the globe. But yeah, if we could.
So I think we have under support, service providers, contractors. So we have a page that doesn't have a link to it anywhere. You just have to know it exists. Here, I'm going to throw it in here. It's a list of all of the people who have marked themselves as being a contractor available for hire. And there is a search box there for country. So if you wanted to find any contractors in your country, you can do it. But this is not like all people on the site. It's only people who have specifically opted into being a contractor. But at least it's a step in the right direction. And then I think, Tim, we started using the forum too for geographic regions, didn't we? Was there a couple of topics there about, are there any people in? No, you don't remember that? Maybe I'm making that up.
I mean, somebody did ask in the forum about how do I contact people in my area, and I think you suggested the same thing. I haven't seen, I mean, I think the way that's probably been most effective in Drupal is groups.drupal.org, right?
Yeah.
The forum and group. And I don't know that that's a practical option for us, but there might be something, like maybe there is a section on the forum where, where
you definitely could port groups, because we're going to need it for Backdrop eventually anyway, and set up a group site. I just feel like groups was so great for Drupal at the time because there wasn't anything else like that. Right, where now we already have a bunch of people using things like Meetup and stuff, where I think the main purpose of those groups has been offloaded to other tools, and the incentive for people signing up for a group is much lower. So we're not going to get the same kind of volume of like everybody in the Bay Area is in the Bay Area group. So finding some other way that I think is easier for people to identify who's in their local area might be good. And because we are collecting this geographic information on the user profiles on backdropcms.org already, that seems like a good place to do it. We just need to figure out how. So I think like if you're going to publicly state your location, maybe we should have a map that's just like search on the map, find out how many people are in the US or how many people are in Mexico or wherever it is that you've listed yourself as being.
Drupal has a Slack channel, and there's sort of like a Slack, not channel, what you would call it? A company thing official. And there is an Australia, New Zealand channel in it. It has other channels like admin UI and migration, like with the initiatives or specific topics for focusing on them. But I found I'm not doing very much on the Australia, New Zealand thing. My handle is the Backdrop CMS guy. So each time that I post something, or at least they know that we have some presence. So if anyone is interested at some point, I guess that they might just poke me and ask me about that. Or if there is an event, I can go just really quickly. I don't want to sort of like be intruding, but I can say if we ever have a meetup or an event like the parties that you guys were having, I could post something there. But it would be better if we had something equivalent to that. I mean, not a Slack or a Gitter channel, but something that we can use to reach out to Backdrop people and say, hey, I'm organizing this, or hey, would anyone be interested in finding out more about Backdrop, or meeting up once a month or something like that.
So another thing too is we could have, like, we have a checkbox on the user profile that asks people if they want security updates. If we had a whole section that was for mailing lists, where security updates was one of them, but we could add like our normal newsletter mailing list, which is currently on MailChimp and not at all connected to backdropcms.org. We could integrate that. And we could also add like, send me location specific or information specific to my geographic location checkbox. And that way, if we did have an event like a Bad Camp and wanted to notify everyone in California, or like a Drupal South and wanted to notify everyone in Australia, we would have that resource and people would have a way to opt in and opt out right there on their profile. So I think that might be a good tool we could use for that, because it's connected both to their user profile, which has their location, and to it could be to the mailing list as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you want to add an item? I've already created a ticket, by the way, for the
integration with MailChimp.
With the demo of the non-stable, the pre-release.
Okay.
I've done that already, so I'll create another ticket for that, because as far as I can tell, I'm not visiting that queue very often, but we don't have one for that specific. So you maybe add a topic in the agenda so we can discuss that.
Okay.
Next time, and I'll create a ticket for it.
So let me just throw out there too, meetup.com was mentioned, and I think a disadvantage to that is it seems to me that it's moved to pretty much pay service. I have an account and I set up a Backdrop user group on meetup.com for the Twin Cities, and I just looked and we have 15 members. 2/3 of them, I don't know who they are.
Yay!
I know that a lot of people kind of just sign up for lots of meetups, and I think they don't necessarily have a strong commitment to them, but that's 15 people that I can message about, when I do a local event. So we might want to look and see if there's some group way we can facilitate that or make it. I think
meetups are being used for the Melbourne meetups. I think other regions in Australia as well, but meetup.com is where they organize I think the monthly meetups, or whatever it is. Did you say it's a paid service now?
I think I know I paid for my account, and I'm pretty sure I did because it wasn't very useful without it, without paying. And I'm like the Twin Cities Drupal user group, we're paying annually. It's not super expensive, I don't think. I don't know, I want to say like $25 a year or something.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. No, it's like making a contribution to Backdrop. I can do that.
Yeah.
Sure, but it would be nice. I don't know if there's any way that we could have like an international user meetup group
yeah.
where people could then create local events.
Okay,
Can you guys look into that and see?
Yeah.
Because this sounds like a model that probably exists for lots of other communities. So just see if something exists, like maybe see if WordPress has something like this. Maybe not, because they have their own mailing lists and stuff. But just see if there's anything that has like a global chapter and then a bunch of local ones underneath.
Are you saying that meetup.com allows you to set up a group and then have subgroups localized?
Well, I don't know about subgroups, but you can certainly do events. So there could be just like a Backdrop meetup, and then you could have events in different cities. But but it would still be one group. Subgroups would be nice. So that's what we should look and see if they have anything like that.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll take a look at that.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right, dev meetup in a minute.
All right, well, we are out of time and we have the developer meeting starting in 1 minute. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. And if either of you guys are interested in joining a developer meeting, we'll see you in a minute. So thanks everybody for watching live and watching later.
See you guys.